The dust was his constant companion, just like hunger and fear. Alex wiped the sweat from his brow, leaving another streak of red ore across his already dirty face. The Qatar overseer cracked his whip nearby, the sound echoing through the vast mining pit where dozens of humans labored under the merciless twin sons of Zaria. "Move faster, worm!" The overseer's voice boomed, his blue skin glistening with a natural oil that protected the Qatar from the desert's heat. "The quota has increased. The Emperor demands more thorium for the fleet expansion." Alex kept his head down, muscles burning as he thrust his pickaxe into the red stone again. 25 years of life as a human on Saria had taught him one valuable lesson. Invisibility was survival. Drawing attention meant pain, or worse. "Alex," whispered Mira, his 16-year-old sister, who worked nearby, sorting smaller pieces of ore into baskets. "Look at the sky." He glanced up briefly, his heart sinking. On the horizon, a massive wall of swirling red-orange was approaching, a dust storm, and not a common one. This was a hellwalker, the kind of storm that could strip flesh from bone if you were caught in the open. The Qatar overseers had noticed too. The alarm horn sounded 3 long blasts. "Shelter protocol," shouted the lead overseer, Sub-Commander Vexcar. "All mining units return to compounds immediately." Alex grabbed Mira's hand. "Stay close." The siblings joined the rush of humans heading toward the transport vehicles. Massive 6-wheeled carriers that would take them back to the slave compounds miles away. But they were at the far end of the pit, and Alex could calculate distances as well as any Qatar navigator. They wouldn't make it in time. "Alex, we won't reach the transports," Mira said, fear edging her voice. "I know," he replied, scanning their surroundings frantically. The storm was approaching too rapidly, already devouring the distant horizon. "This way!" He pulled her toward the eastern ridge of the mining pit, where ancient excavations had created a honeycomb of small caves and tunnels. The Qatar avoided these areas, claiming they were structurally unsound, but Alex had explored them during rest periods. He knew of a deep recess that might offer protection. "But we'll be punished for not returning," Mira protested even as she ran alongside him. "We'll be dead if we try to outrun that storm," Alex responded grimly. The wind was already picking up, stinging their exposed skin with the first wave of sand particles. They reached the ridge and Alex guided them into a narrow fissure between 2 massive boulders. The opening widened into a tunnel that descended steeply into darkness. They had no light source, but Alex had memorized the first 50 paces. After that, they would have to feel their way forward. "Count with me," he told Mira. 47, 48, 49, 50. Now slow down. The sound of the storm grew distant as they ventured deeper, hands outstretched in the absolute darkness. The air grew cooler, a blessed relief after the furnace above. "There should be a chamber about 20 paces ahead," Alex said. "I've never gone further than that. The ground becomes unstable." As they inched forward, the tunnel suddenly widened. The air felt different, less like a natural cave and more contained somehow. Alex's foot struck something metallic, producing a hollow ring that echoed strangely. "What was that?" Mira whispered. Before Alex could answer, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. The storm above must have intensified, its force somehow reaching even this deep. "Get back!" Alex shouted, pushing Mira toward the tunnel entrance. But it was too late. The floor shifted, and suddenly they were sliding downward as the earth gave way beneath them. Alex grabbed Mira, wrapping his body around hers protectively as they tumbled through darkness. They landed hard on something smooth and cold, definitely not stone. Pain shot through Alex's shoulder, but he forced himself to move. "Mira, are you hurt?" "I'm okay," she replied, her voice shaking. "But where are we? I can't see anything." Alex reached out, feeling the surface beneath them. It was perfectly smooth, unlike any natural formation on Zaria. As his hand moved across it, he felt a seam, then what seemed like a panel with indentations. Suddenly, a faint blue light began to pulse beneath his fingertips. The light spread outward in geometric patterns, illuminating their surroundings with a soft glow. "Alex," Mira gasped. They were in a chamber unlike anything they had ever seen. Smooth metallic walls curved overhead in a perfect arch. The floor was covered with intricate patterns that were now glowing softly. But what truly captured their attention was the chair, or rather, the command seat that sat on a raised platform in the center of the room. Before it was a console filled with darkened screens and controls. "This isn't a cave," Alex whispered, awe and terror mingling in his voice. "It's something else." "It's like the old stories," Mira said, eyes wide with wonder. "The tales the elders tell about the time before, about the ships that sailed between stars." Alex had always dismissed those stories as dangerous fantasies. Tales of a time when humans commanded mighty vessels, when they were equals to the Qatar rather than slaves. Such thoughts led only to false hope, and false hope led to rebellion, which led to death. "We shouldn't be here," he said firmly. "Once the storm passes, we leave and tell no one." But even as he spoke, more systems were activating around them. The blue light grew stronger, and the console before the command chair flickered to life. Drawn by a curiosity he couldn't suppress, Alex approached the console. Its surface was covered with dust and red soil that had seeped in over the centuries. Without thinking, he wiped away some of the grime with his palm, already stained with ore from the mines. The moment his hand made contact, the entire chamber hummed to life. Lights blazed from all directions, temporarily blinding them. When Alex could see again, he found himself staring at a holographic display that had appeared above the console. It showed strange symbols rapidly shifting and changing. "DNA analysis in progress," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It spoke in a language that neither of them had ever heard before, yet somehow Alex understood perfectly. "Comparing genetic markers to authorized personnel database." "Alex, what's happening?" Mira clutched his arm, her eyes fixed on the floating symbols. Before he could answer, the hologram shifted again, displaying what appeared to be a double helix strand alongside a profile that made Alex's breath catch in his throat. The image showed a human male in a uniform unlike anything he'd seen before, with insignia on the shoulders and chest. But what was truly shocking was the face. It could have been Alex's own, but older, with a stern expression and eyes that held command. "DNA analysis confirmed," the voice announced. "Solaris lineage verified. Welcome, descendant of Admiral Darius Solaris, commander of the Third Fleet of the Human Confederation." The hologram changed again, now showing a three-dimensional image of a massive vessel. Systems reactivating after extended dormancy. Current location, emergency bunker, command deck access. Main systems, 22% operational. Weapon systems offline. Propulsion, severely damaged. Communications, limited range only. A new hologram appeared, this one taking the shape of a human male dressed in a uniform similar to the one in the Admiral's image. The figure bowed slightly to Alex. "I am Argus, Artificial Responsive Guidance Utility System of the Confederate battlecruiser Invictus. It has been 297 years, 124 days since emergency protocols were enacted. I am pleased to serve you again, Admiral." Alex stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. But Mira stepped forward, her eyes shining with a dangerous light that Alex recognized all too well. "Hope." "You're wrong," Alex finally managed to say. "I'm not an admiral. I'm a mining slave. Registration XR7349. The holographic figure tilted its head. "Your genetic profile confirms you are a direct descendant of Admiral Darius Solaris. In the absence of the original command staff and following Confederate Emergency Protocol 19, command authority transfers to the nearest genetic match to senior officers. You are now acting commander of this vessel." "This is a ship?" Mira asked, looking around in wonder. "A real starship from the old tales?" "The Invictus is a Phoenix-class battlecruiser, flagship of the 3rd Confederate Fleet," Argus responded. "Currently, we are operating on emergency power only. The ship sustained critical damage during the Battle of Zaria and enacted emergency burial protocols to avoid capture." Alex felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. The Battle of Zaria, that was the final battle of the war, wasn't it? When humanity lost to the Qatar Empire. Correct. The battle resulted in catastrophic losses for Confederate forces. Following Admiral Solaris's final command, the Invictus engaged its emergency burial system, using molecular displacers to sink beneath the surface and activated a self-preserving stasis field. The Admiral and remaining crew evacuated via emergency pods, but left behind command authorization for future recovery. Alex ran his hands through his dust-caked hair, trying to process everything. This is insane. We need to leave, now. If the Qatar discover this place, probability of Qatar detection currently at 64% and rising, Argus interrupted. The recent seismic event has disrupted the ship's camouflage systems. Sensors indicate Qatar scanning technology has advanced significantly since last encounter. You mean they might already know we're here? Alex's voice rose in panic. Unknown, but continued exposure increases risk. Recommendation: complete emergency activation protocols to restore minimum defensive capabilities. Mira grabbed Alex's arm. We have to do it. This could change everything for our people. Or get us all killed, Alex shot back. Don't you understand? If the Qatar find out about this, they won't just punish us. They'll eradicate every human on Zaria to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. A new alarm sounded from the console. Alert! Multiple life forms approaching from the surface. Biological signatures consistent with Qatar physiology. Alex's blood ran cold. How long until they reach us? Estimated time: 17 minutes at current rate of descent. Alex looked at his sister, seeing the pleading in her eyes, then back at the hologram of Argus. Everything in him screamed to run, to hide, to disappear as he'd always done. But for the first time in his life, there was nowhere to run. What are our options? He finally asked. Primary option: complete activation of defensive systems and establish secure perimeter. Secondary option: engage emergency stealth protocols to mask all systems and attempt to avoid detection. The second one, Alex said immediately. Can you hide us? Affirmative, but stealth systems are degraded. Probability of successful concealment: 43%. And if we activate defensive systems? Minimum defensive capabilities include perimeter force fields and non-lethal deterrent measures. Probability of repelling Qatar search party: 78%. Alex closed his eyes for a moment. If we activate defenses, will the Qatar be able to detect the energy signature from the surface? Negative. The ship remains sufficiently buried to mask energy emissions. However, any Qatar already inside detection range will immediately identify active systems. The choice was impossible. Run and hide as he'd always done, with a less than half chance of success, or stand and fight with technology he didn't understand, risking everything. Mira's hand found his. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Alex took a deep breath and made his choice. Argus, activate defensive systems, but only target Qatar who actually enter this chamber. I want minimum casualties. Understood, Acting Commander. Initiating defensive protocols. Around them, the ship hummed with increasing power. Panels that had been dark for centuries began to glow with renewed energy. Alex, Mira whispered, what have we done? I don't know, he admitted, but we're about to find out. Subcommander Vexcar led the search party through the tunnels, his natural night vision allowing him to see clearly in the near darkness. Behind him, 5 Qatar soldiers moved with military precision, energy weapons at the ready. The energy signature is unlike anything in our records, reported his second-in-command. It began approximately 30 minutes ago, during the height of the storm. Human slaves were reported missing from the evacuation transports, Vexcar noted. Registration numbers XR7349 and XR8215. Brothers, I believe. Brother and sister, sir. The younger one is female. Vexcar made a dismissive gesture. Humans all looked the same to him, weak creatures with their pale, fragile skin and dull teeth. Poor specimens, good only for labor in conditions that would kill a proper Qatar warrior. The timing cannot be coincidental, Gomentom, he said. These tunnels have been deemed structurally unsound. Perhaps the storm caused a collapse that exposed something buried beneath. A weapon from the war, sir? Possibly. The humans were defeated, but their technology was impressive in its way. The Emperor has always suspected they managed to hide some of their more advanced weaponry before surrender. They reached a point where the tunnel widened suddenly. Vexcar raised his hand, signaling the patrol to halt. His biotech scanner was detecting unusual readings ahead. Molecular displacement traces, he murmured. Very old, but definitely artificial. He stepped forward cautiously, the crest on his head flaring slightly, an instinctive response to potential danger. The floor beneath his feet no longer felt like natural stone, but something smoother, more processed. Advanced materials, he reported into his comm unit, consistent with human Confederation construction. Alert High Command that we may have found. He never finished the sentence. The air before him suddenly shimmered, and Vexcar found himself thrown backward by an invisible force. He crashed into two of his soldiers, sending all three tumbling to the ground. "Energy barrier," he shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Deploy disruptors." The soldiers activated devices on their belts that emitted a high-frequency pulse designed to interrupt most energy fields. But the barrier remained. "Sir, this technology is not responding to standard disruptors," one soldier reported. Vexcar snarled in frustration. "Concentrated fire on a single point. Now!" All five soldiers directed their energy weapons at the same location on the invisible barrier. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a small ripple appeared in the air. "Continue fire," Vexcar ordered, excitement building. Whatever they had found, it was clearly of significant value. His promotion to full commander would be assured if he recovered lost human technology. The ripple in the barrier grew larger, and Vexcar prepared to rush through as soon as an opening appeared. But just as breakthrough seemed imminent, a new sound filled the tunnel, a deep, resonant hum that made his teeth vibrate uncomfortably. From the floor, ceiling, and walls, small apertures opened. Tiny metal spheres, no larger than a Qatar eye, emerged and began to orbit around the search party. "Hold position," Vexcar commanded, suddenly wary. One of the spheres approached him, scanning his body with a thin beam of light. Then it retreated and rejoined the others in their orbital pattern. A voice spoke from nowhere in perfect Qatar language. "This is a restricted area under the protection of Confederate defense protocols. You have 10 seconds to retreat beyond the marked perimeter." "Confederate?" Vexcar's eyes widened. "Impossible! The Confederation fell 3 centuries ago." "5 seconds remaining," the voice continued, emotionless. Pride and training prevented Vexcar from retreating. "We claim this technology in the name of Emperor Korax. Surrender now and your execution will be merciful." Time expired, non-lethal deterrence activated. The orbiting spheres suddenly accelerated, becoming blurs of motion. Before Vexcar could give another order, one sphere struck him in the center of his chest. Rather than causing pain, it released a pulse that instantly paralyzed his nervous system. He collapsed, unable to move anything except his eyes. Around him, his soldiers fell in similar fashion, each taken down by a precisely targeted sphere. As consciousness began to fade, Vexcar had one final terrifying thought. This was no mere weapon cache. This was something far more significant. Then darkness claimed him. Alex watched through the ship's monitoring system as the Qatar search party was neutralized. His hands were shaking, but not entirely from fear. There was something else now, a feeling he'd never experienced before. "They're not dead," Argus confirmed, answering his unspoken question. "The neurological inhibitors will keep them unconscious for approximately 6 hours, after which they will revive with no permanent damage." "What happens when they report what they found?" Mira asked. "They will be unable to provide specific details about this vessel," Argus explained. "The inhibitors include a targeted memory disruptor for recent events. They will recall exploring the tunnels but find their memories of this encounter confused and fragmentary." Alex nodded slowly, trying to think through their options. "That buys us some time, but not much. The Qatar aren't stupid. They'll send more search parties with better equipment." "Correct. Current projections indicate a 94% probability of a larger, more comprehensive Qatar investigation within 48 hours. "Then we need to leave," Alex decided. "Argus, you said the ship's propulsion was severely damaged. Can it be repaired?" "Main propulsion systems are beyond repair with available resources. However, auxiliary maneuvering thrusters are potentially salvageable. With significant work, the ship could achieve limited atmospheric movement." "Could we reach orbit?" "Negative. Maximum achievable altitude would be approximately 7 kilometers with current system status." Alex paced the command deck, mind racing. "What about communications? You said they were limited. How limited?" "Communications array can currently broadcast to a range of approximately 500 kilometers. Not sufficient to reach any known human settlements beyond the Qatar control zone." Mira, who had been quietly taking everything in, suddenly spoke up. "What about the other humans in the mining colony? Could we contact them?" Argus paused as if considering. "Affirmative. Broadcasting to the nearby Qatar mining operation is within current capabilities. No, Alex said immediately. Absolutely not. The Qatar monitor all communications. Any broadcast would be detected instantly. Unless, Mira said slowly, we could use the Qatar's own communication system against them. Alex looked at his sister with newfound respect. What are you thinking? Argus, can you access and analyze Qatar communication protocols based on the data from the search party's equipment? Affirmative. Qatar communications technology has evolved but maintains core structural similarities to systems from the war era. I have already begun analysis of their encryption methods. Could you send a message that appears to come from Qatar authorities? Mira pressed. With appropriate content parameters, yes, I could create a message that would appear legitimate to standard Qatar authentication protocols. Alex began to understand his sister's plan. You want to send false orders to the mining colony. Mira nodded, eyes bright with determination. An evacuation order, something that would clear the area of both Qatar and humans, giving us time to figure out our next move. For the first time since discovering the Shem, Alex felt a glimmer of hope, but caution quickly reasserted itself. It's too risky. If the deception is discovered, the Qatar will execute hostages. You know their standard response to human deception. 1 in 10, Mira whispered, referring to the Qatar practice of executing 1/10 of a human population as punishment for rebellion or significant rule violations. I can't be responsible for that, Alex said firmly. And what about your responsibility to everyone else? Mira challenged, a fire in her eyes that Alex had never seen before. This ship, this technology, it could change everything for our people. Are we just going to bury it again and go back to the mines until we die? What would you have me do? Start a war we can't win? The ship has no weapons, limited movement, and we're just two mine workers with no military training. You're wrong, Mira said quietly. You're not just a mine worker. You're the descendant of Admiral Solaris. This ship recognized you. It was waiting for you. Alex laughed bitterly. That's just genetics, Mira. I'm nothing like the man in that hologram. Actually, Argus interjected, behavioral analysis indicates significant similarities between your decision-making patterns and those of Admiral Solaris. Your caution, analytical approach, and prioritization of civilian safety all align with his command protocols. See, Mira said triumphantly, even the ship knows you're meant for more than breaking rocks. Alex shook his head, but before he could respond, a new alarm sounded. Alert, Argus announced. Long-range sensors detecting multiple Qatar vessels approaching the general area. Estimated time to arrival, 43 minutes. Probability that their destination is this location, 76%. They're coming for the ship, Alex realized aloud. Someone higher up must have been monitoring that search party. Mira grabbed his hands. We're out of time, Alex. We need to make a choice. Malek looked around the command deck, at the technology that had once belonged to his ancestors, people who had fought and died rather than submit to slavery. He thought of the mines above, of the endless days of backbreaking labor, of watching elderly humans work until they collapsed and were left to die in the sun. Argus, he said finally, what would Admiral Solaris do in this situation? The holographic figure seemed to consider the question carefully. Based on historical records and behavioral analysis, Admiral Solaris would prioritize 3 objectives: protect civilian life, preserve critical technology, and deny resources to the enemy. And how would he accomplish those objectives? In numerous similar scenarios, Admiral Solaris employed misdirection rather than direct confrontation when facing superior forces. His tactical philosophy emphasized using the enemy's expectations against them. Alex nodded slowly, a plan beginning to form in his mind. Argus, how quickly can you access and control Qatar communication systems? With current processing allocation, complete access could be achieved in approximately 17 minutes. Do it. I want control of every communication channel in this region, and I need a complete map of all human settlements in a 500-kilometer radius. Mira stared at him. What are you planning? Something incredibly stupid, Alex admitted, but it's the only way to save both the ship and our people. He turned to the holographic interface. Argus, begin emergency repairs on the maneuvering thrusters. We're going to need to move this ship, even if it's just a few kilometers. Initiating repair protocols. Estimated completion time, 37 minutes. That's cutting it close with those Qatar vessels approaching, Alex muttered. What can I do? Mira asked, eager to help. Alex looked at his sister, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. She wasn't just his little sister anymore. She was becoming a woman with her own strength and courage. I need you to search this deck for anything useful. Tools, supplies, especially portable communication devices if they exist. We might need to split up, and I want us to stay in contact. As Mira hurried off to search the adjacent compartments, Alex turned back to Argus. Now tell me everything you know about Qatar military protocols when dealing with suspected human technology. I need to understand exactly how they'll react when they find this place. Accessing historical archives and integrating with observed current Qatar behaviors, Argus responded, compiling tactical analysis. As information began to flow across the holographic displays, Alex felt something shifting inside him. A weight he'd carried his entire life, made up of fear, resignation, and suppressed anger. In its place came something new. Purpose. The Qatar were coming, and this time humanity would not be caught unprepared. High Commander Zoltar stood on the bridge of his assault cruiser, watching as the red desert of Sharia grew larger in the view screen. Behind him, a dozen officers managed their stations with the precision expected of the Emperor's elite forces. Report, he demanded. We've lost contact with Sub-Commander Vexkar's search party, his second-in-command reported. Their last transmission indicated discovery of materials consistent with human Confederation construction. In the energy signature? Still present but fluctuating. Our sensors indicate it's similar to the emergency systems of a Confederate capital ship. Zoltar's crest flared with excitement. If they had indeed found a preserved Confederate vessel, it would be the most significant discovery in decades. The Emperor had long sought any remaining examples of human military technology from before the conquest. Prepare a full excavation team, he ordered Bond. I want whatever they found extracted and secured for transport to the homeworld. Sir, another officer called out, we're receiving an emergency broadcast on the Imperial Command Channel. Priority Alpha. Zoltar frowned. Source? Regional Governor's Headquarters in Sar Koresh. Put it through. The view screen changed to show the face of Governor Malvik, his expression grave. High Commander, we have a situation requiring immediate attention. Our security grid has detected unauthorized access to restricted archives at multiple facilities across the region. The intrusion pattern suggests a coordinated human resistance operation. Zoltar's eyes narrowed. Impossible. The humans lack both the technology and organization for such an operation. Nevertheless, the evidence is clear. Worse, we have reason to believe they may have accessed information about the Emperor's upcoming inspection tour. We must consider this a direct threat to Imperial security. The bridge fell silent. The Emperor's safety was the highest priority for any Qatar commander. What are you proposing, Governor? I've already ordered evacuation of all non-essential personnel from facilities with human workers. Security forces are implementing containment protocols. I request that your fleet divert to the capital to establish a security perimeter. Zoltar hesitated. His orders to investigate the energy signature had come directly from Imperial Command. But the potential threat to the Emperor himself outweighed all other considerations. Very well. We will change course immediately. Have your forces secure the investigation site until we can return. Acknowledged, High Commander. Glory to the Empire. As the transmission ended, Zoltar turned to his navigation officer. Set course for Zarkaresh, maximum speed. Sir, his second-in-command said quietly, what of our original mission? It will have to wait. The governor has designated human containment units for evacuation. That means thousands of slaves being relocated. If there truly is a resistance movement gaining access to our systems, we cannot risk them seizing control of a Confederate warship, no matter how damaged it might be. The officer nodded in understanding, and Zoltar returned his gaze to the view screen, unaware that the entire exchange had been manufactured by an artificial intelligence system that had once helped humanity fight against his people and was now active once again. Alex watched the Qatar vessels changing course on the tactical display, hardly daring to believe their plan had worked. They've taken the bait, Mira said, her voice filled with wonder. They're actually leaving. Argus, Alex said. What's the status of the mining colony? Qatar forces are implementing evacuation protocols as anticipated. All human workers are being loaded onto transport vessels. Qatar administrators believe they are acting on orders from regional governance. Alex nodded grimly. And the repair work on the thrusters? Completed to minimal functional parameters. The ship can now achieve limited movement, though structural integrity will be compromised if we attempt to fully emerge from the surrounding terrain. We don't need to emerge completely, Alex said, just enough to reach the rendezvous point. The plan they had devised was audacious and riddled with potential failure points. Using Argus's ability to infiltrate Qatar communications, they had created the illusion of a human resistance movement threatening key Imperial facilities. This had diverted the approaching Qatar vessels, while simultaneously causing the mining colony administrators to evacuate all personnel, including the human slaves. Now came the truly dangerous part. The evacuated humans were being transported to a containment facility nearly 200 kilometers away. Alex had directed Argus to alter the transport routes, creating a diversion that would bring one transport, carrying approximately 400 humans, within range of their position. The Qatar transport is approaching the diversion point, Argus announced. Time to interception, 12 minutes. Alex turned to Mira, who had armed herself with a long metal tool that resembled a spear. She had also found a cache of emergency supplies, including water purifiers and medical kits. Remember the plan, he said. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, she interrupted firmly. You're the Admiral, Gao. Act like it. Despite everything, Alex smiled. I'm no Admiral, but I promise you this. No more humans will die in those mines. Not if I can help it. Transport diversion complete, Argus reported. The vessel is now on the altered course. Qatar communications indicate the crew believes they are following designated evacuation protocols. Begin ascension sequence, Alex ordered, taking his position in the command chair. Minimum power to thrusters until we're close enough to surface, then full emergency power for the intercept. The ship shuddered around them, centuries-old systems straining as they pulled against the weight of sand and rock that had been their covering for so long. Warning signals flashed across multiple displays, but Argus methodically rerouted power and adjusted thrust vectors to maintain progress. Slowly, painfully, the ancient battlecruiser began to rise through layers of earth, its outer hull groaning under the pressure. On the main view screen, Alex could see the layers of rock giving way as they ascended, until finally a circle of red-orange light appeared above, the surface of Zaria. We've reached minimum breakout depth, Argus announced, engaging emergency thrust. The ship lurched upward with sudden force, throwing Alex back into the command chair. With a roar that must have been audible for kilometers around, the Invictus broke through the surface of the desert, sending a massive plume of sand and dust skyward. Hull integrity at 63% and holding, Argus reported. All critical systems online. Transport vessel now visible on sensors. Distance 3.2 kilometers and closing. On the view screen, Alex could see the Qatar transport, a bulky utilitarian vessel designed for moving large numbers of slaves between facilities. It had altered course upon detecting their emergence, probably trying to establish a communication. They're scanning us, Argus noted, attempting to identify our vessel type. Can they tell what we are? Alex asked. Negative. 3 centuries of burial has altered our external configuration sufficiently to confuse standard identification protocols. Additionally, the dust cloud from our emergence is obscuring detailed scans. Good. Open a channel to the transport, audio only, and translate my words into Qatar language. A soft tone indicated the channel was open. Qatar transport, Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady and authoritative. This is High Command Security Vessel Enforcer. You have entered a restricted security zone. Power down your engines immediately and prepare for boarding. There was a pause, then a confused Qatar voice responded. Unidentified vessel, we have received no notification of a restricted zone in this sector. We are following direct evacuation orders from Governor Malvek. Your orders have been superseded, Alex replied coldly. This entire region is now under direct Imperial control due to the security breach. Power down immediately or face destruction. Another pause, longer this time. Alex could imagine the Qatar commander weighing his options, trying to verify orders through normal channels, channels that Argus had already compromised. Compliance signals detected, Argus reported quietly. The transport is powering down its engines and dropping to surface level. Alex exhaled slowly. Bring us alongside them. Prepare boarding protocols. Alex, Mira said nervously, we don't have weapons or a boarding party. How are we going to take control of that transport? We don't need weapons, Alex replied, a grim smile forming on his lips. We have something better, fear and confusion. Argus, deploy the remaining functional defense spheres. Have them surround the transport, but do not engage unless the Qatar show hostile intent. From concealed ports along the Invictus's hull, dozens of small metallic spheres emerged, quickly forming a swarm that moved toward the Qatar transport. Now, Alex continued, broadcast this message on all frequencies, including the internal communication system of the transport. Attention all Qatari personnel. This vessel has been quarantined under Imperial Health Directive 793. A contagion alert has been issued for all blue-skin personnel in this region. Remain in your command center for mandatory medical scanning. Any Qatar attempting to access the cargo areas will be considered infected and terminated immediately. The message was transmitted, and Alex watched on the view screen as the swarm of defense spheres surrounded the transport, their metallic surfaces reflecting the harsh sunlight of Syria. Now comes the tricky part, Alex muttered, standing from the command chair. Argus, you have control of the ship. Maintain position and keep the Qatar confused with periodic update messages about quarantine protocols. Understood, Acting Commander. What is your intention? Mira and I are going aboard that transport. We need to make contact with our people. Alex, that's incredibly dangerous, Mira protested. What if the Qatar don't believe the quarantine story? They don't need to believe it for long, Alex replied, checking the portable communicator they had found. They just need to be hesitant enough to stay put while we organize the humans. Remember, most of those slaves are from our own mining colony. They know us. Mira nodded slowly, then grabbed her makeshift spear with renewed determination. Let's go then. Alex led the way to what had once been an auxiliary airlock. The ship's internal transport systems were non-functional, so they had to traverse several darkened corridors manually. Finally, they reached a small chamber with a sealed door. Argus, can you open this airlock remotely? Affirmative. Be advised that the external environment will be extremely hot and low in oxygen content. The sandstorm has dissipated, but air quality remains poor. Understood. Open it. The ancient mechanisms groaned but functioned, revealing the harsh landscape of Zaria. The Invictus had positioned itself directly alongside the Qatar transport, its massive bulk dwarfing the smaller vessel, despite being partially embedded in the desert floor. Alex and Mira quickly crossed the short distance between the ships, reaching an access hatch on the transport's hull. Using tools they had brought from the Invictus, they managed to override the simple locking mechanism. Remember, Alex whispered as they prepared to enter. Most of these humans have never known anything but slavery. They'll be terrified and confused. We need to move quickly, but avoid causing panic. Mira nodded and they slipped inside the transport. The cargo hold was packed with humans of all ages, sitting or lying on the bare metal floor. The air was stifling, filled with the smell of unwashed bodies and fear. As Alex and Mira moved among them, confused whispers spread. It's Alex from Section 12. How did they get here? Are the Blueskins watching? Alex spotted a familiar face, Dorn, an older man who had been working the mine since before Alex was born. He had always been something of an unofficial leader among the slaves, respected for his wisdom and calm demeanor. Dorn, Alex said quietly, crouching beside the man, we don't have much time. I need your help. The old man's eyes widened in recognition. Oh, Alex, what's happening? The overseers ordered an emergency evacuation. Said there was some kind of security threat. There is a threat, Alex replied, but not the one they think. Listen carefully. We found a way to escape, but we need everyone to work together. Dorn looked skeptical. Escape? There's nowhere to go on Zaria. The Qatar control everything. Not everything, Alex said firmly. Not anymore. Look out that viewport. Dorn turned to where Alex was pointing, and his jaw dropped as he saw the massive form of the Invictus, its ancient hull gleaming dully in the sunlight. What is that? It's a ship, a human ship from before the conquest, and it's going to get us out of here. But we have to move now. The Qatar commanders are confused and isolated on the bridge, but that won't last long. Dorn stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? Spread the word, quietly. Tell everyone to prepare to move on my signal. We'll need to transfer from this ship to the other one as quickly and orderly as possible. As Dorn began moving through the crowded hold, whispering to small groups who then passed the message along, Alex activated his communicator. Argus, we're inside. Begin final preparations for receiving approximately 400 humans. What's the status of the Qatar crew? They remain isolated in the command center as instructed. However, they have attempted to contact external Qatar authorities 17 times in the past 8 minutes. I have blocked all transmissions, but they will soon realize something is wrong. Understood. Be ready to provide covering fire with the defense spheres if necessary, but non-lethal measures only. Confirmed. Transfer passages are being prepared now. Alex looked around the hold. Dorn had worked efficiently. The message had spread throughout the assembled humans, who were now watching Alex with a mixture of fear, confusion, and the first fragile tendrils of hope. He climbed onto a raised platform at one end of the hold, making himself visible to everyone. Listen to me, he called out, his voice stronger and more commanding than he had ever allowed it to be before. My name is Alex, and like you, I've spent my entire life as a slave in the mines of Sharia. But today, that changes for all of us. Murmurs spread through the crowd, but they quickly fell silent, hungry for his next words. The ship you can see outside belonged to our ancestors. It's called the Invictus, and it fought against the Qatar 300 years ago. It's been waiting, buried in the desert, and now it's active again. We have control of it, and we're going to use it to free as many of our people as we can. The Qatar will hunt us down, someone shouted from the crowd. There's nowhere on this planet they can't find us. You're right, Alex acknowledged. That's why we're not staying on Zaria. The ship can't reach orbit, but it can take us to the Deadlands in the southern hemisphere. The Qatar avoid that region because of the magnetic disturbances that affect their technology. We'll be safe there while we repair the ship and plan our next move. And what move is that? Dorn asked, giving voice to the question on everyone's mind. Alex paused, looking out over the sea of faces, people who had never known freedom, who had been born into slavery and expected to die the same way. They deserved the truth. I don't know exactly what comes next, he admitted. I'm not a military leader or a politician. I'm just a miner who found something our ancestors left behind. But I do know this. For 300 years, the Qatar have treated us like animals. They've worked us to death, separated our families, and told us we were inferior. Today, we start proving them wrong. A strange silence fell over the hold. Then slowly a young woman near the front stood up. I'll follow you, she said simply. One by one, others rose to their feet until the entire hold was standing. Mira, Alex said, turning to his sister, lead the first group across to the Invictus. I'll coordinate from here until everyone is aboard. As Mira began organizing the evacuation, Alex's communicator crackled to life. Alert, Argus's voice reported. Qatar command staff attempting to override cargo hold access. Defense spheres are in position to intercept, but containment cannot be guaranteed for more than 7 minutes. Understood, Alex replied. We're moving now. The evacuation began in earnest, with groups of 20 humans at a time making the short but dangerous crossing between the two vessels. The first groups moved hesitantly, afraid of the open sky after years underground, but as they saw their companions safely reaching the Invictus, their pace quickened. Alex stayed on the platform, counting groups and maintaining order. More than half had made the crossing when Argus spoke again. Warning, Qatar reinforcements detected approaching from the west. Estimated arrival time, 12 minutes. Additionally, the command crew has armed themselves and are attempting to force their way out of the bridge. Alex's mind raced. They couldn't evacuate everyone in time if they maintained the careful, orderly process. But rushing could lead to panic and casualties. Dorn, he called to the older man, who was helping organize the remaining groups. We need to move faster. Get everyone across now any way you can. Dorn nodded grimly and began urging the remaining humans toward the exit in larger groups. The careful order broke down as people rushed for the hatch, but somehow they avoided trampling each other. Perhaps even in their desperation, they remembered too well what it felt like to be treated as less than human. Argus, how many more can you accommodate? Current passenger count at 287. Remaining capacity in the secure sections is approximately 150 individuals. And the Qatar reinforcements? Now 8 minutes from arrival. Their communications indicate they have been informed of a potential Confederate vessel and are armed accordingly. Alex looked around the hold. Only about 50 people remained, making their way toward the exit. He should go with them, but something held him back, a sense of responsibility he'd never felt before. Argus, what's the status of the Qatar command crew? They have breached the secondary door and will reach the cargo hold in approximately 40 seconds. Making his decision, Alex rushed to the exit and helped the last stragglers through. Go! Get to the Invictus! As the final human made it through the hatch, he sealed it from the inside and turned to face the interior door. Argus, I'm still aboard the transport. All other humans have been evacuated to the Invictus. Understood. Your life signs are being monitored. May I ask what you are planning, Acting Commander? A diversion, Alex replied, searching the hold for anything he could use as a weapon. He found a length of metal pipe that had broken free during the evacuation. The Qatar reinforcements are coming for this transport. If they find it empty, they'll immediately focus on the Invictus. Your logic is sound, but remaining behind presents extreme personal risk. Some risks are worth taking, Alex said, positioning himself behind a structural support near the interior door. Prepare the Invictus for immediate departure once I give the signal. The ship cannot achieve departure velocity with you still aboard the transport. I know. Just be ready. The interior door burst open and 3 Qatar warriors rushed in, energy weapons raised. They stopped short when they saw the empty hold. The humans are gone! One shouted in their harsh language, which Alex understood only from years of hearing it shouted at him. Check for breaches! As they spread out to search the hold, Alex gripped his makeshift weapon tighter. He wasn't a fighter. Fighter had never even raised his hand against a Qatari before today. But now everything was different. He waited until one of the warriors passed close to his hiding spot, then swung the metal pipe with all his strength. It connected with the back of the Qatar's knees, sending him crashing to the floor with a howl of pain and surprise. The other 2 warriors spun toward the sound, weapons ready. But Alex was already moving, diving behind another support pillar as energy bolts sizzled past him. Human, one of them snarled. Surrender and your death will be quick. Alex didn't respond. Instead, he activated his communicator. Argus, deploy defense spheres to the transport. Non-lethal targeting. Almost immediately, a dozen small spheres shot through the still open exterior hatch, moving with incredible speed as they targeted the Qatar warriors. Before they could react, 2 of them were struck and collapsed, paralyzed by the neural inhibitors. The 3rd warrior, more alert than his companions, managed to destroy 1 sphere with his weapon before being struck by another. He fell beside his comrades, eyes still open, but body completely immobile. Alex emerged from his hiding place, breathing heavily. Argus, status of reinforcements? 4 minutes to arrival. They have accelerated upon losing contact with the transport crew. Perfect. Now they're focused here instead of on the Invictus. Alex knelt beside the paralyzed Qatar, looking into the alien's hate-filled eyes. I want you to remember this moment, he said quietly. The day you learn that humans aren't just animals to be worked to death. We're coming for our freedom, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. Standing, he moved quickly to the transport's control panel and began inputting commands based on Argus's instructions through his communicator. Autopilot engaged, he confirmed. Set to intercept the incoming Qatar vessels. That should buy us more time. He moved toward the exit hatch. Argus, prepare for my return. Then immediate departure. Acknowledged. Be advised that the defense spheres are returning to the Invictus to recharge. You will have no protection during your crossing. Understood. Alex opened the hatch and then looked out at the Invictus, its massive bulk now humming with power as systems long dormant came fully online. The crossing was only about 30 meters, but it felt like kilometers as he stepped out onto the red sand of Zaria. He had made it about halfway when the first energy bolt struck the ground near his feet. Diving forward, he rolled behind a small dune and looked back. One of the Qatar warriors had managed to partially overcome the neural inhibitor, enough to drag himself to the hatch and aim his weapon. Alex ran in a zigzag pattern as more bolts fired, some coming close enough that he could feel their heat. The Invictus grew larger before him, its airlock open and waiting. 20 meters. 10. 5. A searing pain suddenly tore through his left shoulder as an energy bolt grazed him. He stumbled, but kept moving, diving through the airlock just as another bolt struck the hull beside him. "I'm aboard," he gasped into his communicator. "Go now!" The airlock sealed, and Alex felt the deck vibrate beneath him as the ancient thrusters engaged with full power. Through a small viewport, he watched as the Qatar transport grew smaller, moving on its programmed intercept course toward the approaching reinforcements. Then hands were helping him up, Mira, Dorn, and others, their faces concerned, but also filled with something he hadn't seen in human eyes before. Pride. "You're hurt," Mira said, examining his wounded shoulder. "It's nothing," Alex replied, though the pain was intense. "Argus, status?" "Departing vector established. The Qatar reinforcements have engaged with the transport as anticipated, creating confusion in their command structure. Estimated time to safe distance, 17 minutes. Alex allowed himself to be led to the command deck, where hundreds of humans now crowded the spaces designed for a crew of perhaps 50. They parted as he walked through, whispers following in his wake. "It's him, the Admiral's descendant. He saved us all." When he reached the command chair, Alex turned to face them. These people, his people, looked to him now with hope and expectation. The weight of their trust was almost as painful as his injured shoulder. "We've taken the first step," he told them, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "But our journey is just beginning. The Deadlands will give us shelter for now, but eventually we'll need to decide our own future." "What will that future be?" Dorn asked, standing at the front of the crowd. Alex looked at the old man, then at Mira, then at all the faces watching him. "That's for all of us to determine together. But I can tell you this, it won't include chains or whips or overseers. For the first time in 300 years, we get to choose." A cheer rose from the assembled humans, echoing through the ancient corridors of the Invictus as it soared across the red desert of Sharia, bearing its precious cargo of hope toward the uncertain horizon. In the command chair, Argus's holographic interface shimmered beside Alex. "Course set for the Deadlands, Acting Commander. May I make an observation?" "Go ahead," Alex said quietly, so only those nearest could hear. "Admiral Solaris would be proud of what you accomplished today." Alex shook his head slightly. "I'm not him. I'm just trying to do what's right." "That," Argus replied, "is precisely why he would be proud." As the red desert gave way to rugged mountains below, Alex gazed out at the harsh beauty of the planet that had been humanity's prison for 3 centuries. Soon it would become the birthplace of their rebellion. The journey ahead would be difficult, perhaps impossible. But for the first time in his life, Alex welcomed the challenge. He was no longer a slave, no longer just a number in the Qatar mines. He was the descendant of Admiral Solaris, acting commander of the Confederate battlecruiser Invictus, and the Qatar Empire was about to remember why they had feared humanity 300 years ago. Behind him, Mira placed a hand on his uninjured shoulder. "What are you thinking?" she asked softly. Alex smiled, a genuine smile that felt strange on his face after years of practiced submission. "I'm thinking that finding an old ship in the desert was the best thing that ever happened to us." "To all of us," she corrected, gesturing to the humans around them. Standing taller now, speaking more freely, beginning to remember what it meant to be human. "Yes," Alex agreed, watching as the Invictus's sensors detected the magnetic anomalies that marked the boundary of the Deadlands. "To all of us." The ancient ship crossed the invisible threshold, disappearing from Qatar scanning systems and carrying its human cargo into a new chapter of their long-suppressed history, not as slaves but as the architects of their own destiny.